My name is Myra Wesley, and I'm 33 years old. My mom called me the ugly one for 30 years. Then she spent $85,000 on my younger sister's wedding while refusing $5,000 for mine. I was born with a cleft lip. They fixed it before I turned 1. The scar above my upper lip is small now, white, the size of a grain of rice. To my mother, it stayed loud. It was the receipt that proved she'd failed. Cassidy was always the pretty one, the pageants, the blonde hair, the face Mom thought she was supposed to have. When I told my mother I was getting married too, she sighed into the phone. Be realistic, honey. Who'd come to your wedding? I went to my sister's rehearsal dinner anyway. I sat where they told me to sit. Table 17, near the kitchen. What happened when the groom's 82-year-old grandmother walked across that ballroom changed everything I thought I knew about being invisible. Welcome back to the channel. Here we tell the family stories that never make it past the centerpieces. The ones told from the back of the room, by the daughter no one called by name. If you've ever sat where someone built a room without you, this story is for you. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and stay until the end. It started with a silver compact and a tri-county crown. The first time I noticed the compact, I was 5. We were at the Olin Mills studio on Highway 9, family portrait day. My mother had spent an hour curling Cassidy's hair. Cassidy was 2, in lap pose, all dimples and matching dress. I sat on a stool in the second row, hands folded. The photographer was a kind man with a graying beard. He framed the shot, frowned, and walked over to me. Sweetheart, he said gently, can you turn your head just a little, so the light doesn't catch your lip wrong? I turned my head. I didn't know what wrong looked like. I just knew it was mine. That's when my mother snapped open the compact. It was silver, engraved with thin script that said Miss Tri-County 1984. She'd worn it as a sash, won it at 19. Lost the state title that fall to a girl from Terre Haute with bigger teeth. The compact was her consolation prize. She carried it everywhere. She didn't comfort me. She didn't say anything to me at all. She flipped open the compact, checked her lipstick in the small round mirror, and said over my head, just take the picture. We can crop her. The photographer's neck went red. He took the picture. I have seen that photograph once, at my grandmother's funeral, in an album somebody pulled out. I'm half in the frame, half cropped, like she promised. By age 6, I understood. The compact opened only for Cassidy. The mirror inside reflected one face. Mine was always slightly off angle, slightly off light, slightly off her. I started saving every dollar from babysitting. I didn't yet know what for. The surgery was at Riley Children's in Indianapolis, January 1993. I was 6 months old. My father drove 4 hours through black ice. My mother stayed in the waiting room and asked the nurse twice if it would be obvious afterward. It wasn't obvious. The surgeon was good. The scar would settle, fade, become almost nothing. Almost. My mother told me when I was older that after the surgery she just couldn't try for another perfect one. Then Cassidy came, 3 years later. It was like God apologized, she said once, at a Thanksgiving table. I was 9 the first time someone said it out loud. Cassidy was 6. We were at my Aunt Patricia's house, surrounded by cousins on the back patio. Cassidy had a popsicle and the run of the yard. She came up close, sticky-fingered, and tilted her head at me. Mommy says you have the ugly mouth, she said, loud enough for the cousins to hear. Did you know that? The cousins went quiet. My mother was inside, refilling her wine. I laughed first. I made my voice bright, scraped a smile across my face, told Cassidy her popsicle was dripping on her shoes. That night, I learned the rule. If you laugh first, no one knows where to put the cruelty. They tuck it back inside themselves and pretend it didn't happen. My father patted my shoulder later in the kitchen. He didn't say anything. He never said anything aloud. I started touching the scar on my upper lip whenever I was nervous, a habit I'd carry for 20 years. A small secret check. Still there. Still mine. I didn't know yet that being mine would one day be the point. I left Millbrook at 18. Scholarship to Indiana University Bloomington. Bachelor's in kinesiology, then the Doctor of Physical Therapy program at the IU School of Health in Indianapolis. I finished at 24. The whole way, I worked at a pediatric clinic on Tuesdays and Thursdays. My mother told relatives I was studying something with backs. I specialized in pediatric craniofacial. It wasn't a hidden choice. I picked the work because of my face. I knew what it was like to be a 6-month-old on an operating table and a 9-year-old at a popsicle interrogation. I knew the in-between part nobody photographs. I opened my own practice in Broad Ripple 2 years ago. 3 rooms, 2 assistants, a wait list. In October 2025, I got a letter from the Smith Coleman Foundation. They run grants for kids with cleft palate, craniofacial differences, surgery aftercare. They give 1 clinical award a year. The letter said I'd been selected for the Excellence in Pediatric Care Award, $10,000 and a plaque. I flew to Cincinnati. I gave a keynote at a hotel ballroom in front of 200 people. I talked about a 5-year-old patient I'll call Eli. I told them my own scar had walked into the room before I did, my whole life, and that my job was to make sure Eli's didn't have to. I cried twice during the speech. So did some of the audience. I came home with the plaque. I hung it on my office wall, above my desk. I never sent a photograph to Millbrook. I told my mother on the phone, mentioned only the dollar amount. She said, "That's nice, honey. Your aunt's coming Sunday." Some pride doesn't survive in certain houses. I met David Brennan at a community garden in Broad Ripple, spring of 2022. He was kneeling between 2 raised beds, transplanting tomatoes too late in the season. Mechanical engineer at a wind turbine company in Lebanon. 33 at the time. Brown eyes, brown hair, calloused hands, very still face, when he was thinking. He didn't ask about my scar on the first date, or the second, or the third. Most people ask early to get it out of the way. He waited. On the 4th date, walking by the canal, he said, "Tell me about that, if you want, or don't." I told him. About the surgery, about Cassidy, about the compact. He listened the whole way through. At the end, he kissed me once, on the spot above my lip, then on my mouth. He proposed Christmas morning, 2025, on my apartment balcony. No knee, no ring drama. He held out a thin gold band and said, "I don't need a wedding. I just need to be your husband by Tuesday, if that's what you want." I said yes. I didn't tell my mother for 2 months. When I finally did, she was driving. I heard the click of her turn signal. Then she said, exactly 1 word. "Okay." That was all. David's parents drove up from Bloomington for Easter and welcomed me into their kitchen like I'd been there all my life. His mother sent me a recipe for her grandmother's lemon bars in a handwritten card. David had only 1 line he kept saying about my family. He said it gently, like a steady drumbeat under everything else. "I won't watch you become someone smaller around them." I knew even then that he meant it. Cassidy got engaged in March 2026. I found out from Aunt Patricia's Facebook post before anyone called me. A picture of Cassidy's left hand, 2.5 carats, hovering over a Cracker Barrel breakfast plate. Caption: "This changes everything for our family." The groom was Trent Coleman, 32, lawyer at a firm in Indianapolis. His family was old Indianapolis, judges, charity boards, 3 generations of pearls. The Smith Coleman Foundation belonged to them. The same foundation, the same name on the plaque hanging in my office. I sat with that for 10 minutes before I said anything to David. My mother finally called 4 days later when she remembered I existed. She talked for 38 minutes without pausing. The venue, the dress consultations in Carmel, the Coleman family's old money. She asked me 1 question at the very end. "Are you bringing, what's his name?" "David," I said. "Right, David." Aunt Patricia got on the line halfway through. She'd been listening, breathing into the receiver. "The Colemans. You know, they do all that charity work for the cripple kids. You'd know about that kind of thing, Myra." I almost told her then. I didn't. I have asked myself, in the months since, why I didn't say a single word about the award. The simplest answer is that it would have been used wrong. My mother would have called the foundation immediately. She'd have wanted to leverage it for Cassidy. The award would have become her award. My silence kept it mine. I hung up the phone. I sat with David on the couch. He poured wine. We didn't talk about it for a long time. I had 3 months to decide whether to attend a wedding for the family that didn't see me. I chose silence. I'm still not sure if that was strategy or instinct. Maybe it was both. My dad called me one Tuesday night in April. He doesn't call. He texts maybe twice a year. So when his name lit up the screen at 9:30, I knew. "Honey," he said, "I'm going to tell you something I shouldn't." He told me they were taking a second mortgage on the farm, $85,000, for the wedding. I sat very still on the kitchen floor with my phone pressed to my ear. The dress alone was $9,200. Crooked Stick Country Club for the rehearsal dinner and the reception. $32,000 for the venue contract. $14,000 in florals. A string quartet. A photographer flown in from Louisville. A wedding planner who only worked with one wedding per quarter. "Your mother wants this," he said. I don't know how to tell her no. I told him I understood. That was a lie. I called my mother the next morning. I asked, gently, if she might consider helping with $5,000 toward David's and my October ceremony at the Botanical Garden. We were paying for most of it ourselves. $5,000 would cover catering. She sighed. Then she said the line I will hear for the rest of my life. "Honey, be realistic. Who'd come to your wedding? We can't pour resources into both. Cassidy's wedding has a return on investment. Yours is just ceremony." I waited for my father to speak. I could hear him on the line. He didn't. I hung up. I didn't cry. 12 hours later, the invitation arrived. Heavy cream cardstock. Foil edged. My name printed neatly inside. Myra Wesley. No +1. That's when I cried. David held me on the kitchen floor and didn't try to fix it. He just stayed. I almost didn't go. I told David, the next morning over coffee, that I was thinking about sending a polite card and skipping the whole weekend. He stirred his oatmeal. He didn't look up. "You can skip it," he said. "But I want you to make that choice because you want to. Not because you're afraid of what they'll do if you show up." I sat with that. The deeper truth was this. If I stayed home, my mother would tell every cousin and aunt that I couldn't handle it, that Myra has always had her struggles, that she tried so hard. My absence would write me into a corner I'd never get out of. If I went and shrank, David would watch me become someone smaller. He'd promised not to, and I'd promised not to ask him to. There was a third option. Go. Not to fight. Not to confront. Just to stand in the room as myself. Eat the food. Hold David's hand. Refuse to perform any version of myself my mother had written. I told David my decision. He nodded. Once. He didn't say "I'm proud of you." He said, "Then we'll need to drive Friday morning. I'll get the oil changed." That's the thing about David. He doesn't make a speech about the choice. He just makes the choice possible. I RSVP'd yes that afternoon. I added David's name on the response card. I knew they'd ignore it. I didn't add it for them. I added it because writing his name on their cream cardstock felt like setting a small stone in the foundation of a house they couldn't tear down anymore. We had 6 weeks until the rehearsal dinner. I started, for the first time in 30 years, to feel ready. We drove down on a Friday morning in May. Indianapolis to Millbrook is 3 hours if you don't stop. We stopped twice. Once at a gas station outside Greenwood for terrible coffee and a corn dog David ate in 3 bites. Once at a rest area past Columbus where I sat in the car alone for 10 minutes and breathed. The drive south of Columbus is mostly corn. Then more corn. Then a 4-H banner on every fence. Then a brown sign that reads, "Welcome to Millbrook." Population 4,217. Same population since I was 16. People here die at exactly the rate they're born. I'd booked a Best Western 20 minutes outside town. My mother had asked twice. Once on the phone, once by text. For us to just stay at the house, save the money. I'd said no both times. She told my Aunt Patricia. Patricia told my cousin Trish. By the time we crossed the county line, half the town knew where I was sleeping. David glanced at me as we passed the Wesley Farm sign on Route 9. "You good?" he asked. "Driving," I said. The voicemail came through halfway between the gas station and the motel. My mother. She didn't say hello. "Myra, your sister is hurt. She's hurt. We don't understand why you have to make everything difficult." David's jaw moved a quarter inch. He didn't speak. I deleted the voicemail without replaying it. I kept both hands on the wheel. We checked in at 4. The room smelled like commercial detergent and somebody's old cigarettes. The bedspread was thin. It was perfect. By 4:30, there was a knock at our door. I hadn't told anyone where we were staying. My Aunt Patricia stood in the hallway in too much perfume, holding a tinfoil casserole. "Sweetie," she said, smiling, "I just brought you a little something. You must be exhausted." She was 56 and divorced. Her husband had left her for a 30-year-old dental hygienist in 2018. She'd been carrying her own narrative ever since. The brave older sister, holding the family up while Linda dealt with everything she had to deal with. I knew, because Millbrook is a town, that she had called 4 motels before finding mine. I led her into the room. David shook her hand. He took the casserole and set it on the laminate desk. He did not invite her to sit down. She sat down anyway, on the edge of the bed, and worked. She told me my complexion looked tired. She asked David what an engineer makes these days. She told me twice that my mother was just trying so hard for Cassidy, because of everything you went through. What I had gone through, in Patricia's framing, was a 6-month-old surgery 32 years ago. Then she leaned forward, dropping her voice like we were friends. "Cassidy and your mother talked to the Coleman family last week," she said, mouth twitching toward a smile. "About you, sweetie. Cassidy is so protective. She told them she didn't want them feeling uncomfortable around you. Such a thoughtful girl." David's hand was on the doorknob in 5 seconds. "We appreciate the food, Patricia," he said politely. "Myra needs to rest before the dinner." She stood, kissed the air near my cheek, and left. David threw the casserole in the dumpster behind the parking lot. The line about Cassidy protecting me stayed in my chest like a splinter I couldn't reach. The final fitting was Friday afternoon at a boutique in Carmel. I hadn't been told I was invited. My mother texted at 1:15. "Come if you want. We could use a hand carrying purses." I went. I'm not sure why. Maybe to see if she could bring herself to look at me in a room with mirrors. Maybe just to take the test and find out what grade I got. The boutique smelled like white tea and money. 5 bridesmaids in matching robes. All college friends, all from sororities I'd never heard of. Cassidy on a small platform in 15 pounds of beaded silk. My mother introduced me to each bridesmaid as, "This is Myra. She's our little helper today. Not my sister, not the older Wesley girl. Helper." I held purses. I held them well. Then Cassidy, standing on her platform, caught my reflection in the 3-way mirror. She frowned. She turned to the assistant. "Can my helper stand behind me, not next to me? The angle is wrong." The bridesmaids didn't react. They'd been trained. I stepped backward. I held the purses. "David," by text. 2 minutes later. "You okay?" Me. Driving back to the motel in 20. I stayed exactly 20 more minutes. I didn't say goodbye. I set the 4 purses on the boutique's velvet bench, walked out to my car, and drove. The boutique's GPS-tracked door alarm probably told someone I'd left. They didn't notice for another 40 minutes. I know because that's when the texts started. My mother. "Don't make this about you." Cassidy. "Seriously? You're going to do this now?" My mother again. "Don't make this about you." 3 times in 24 hours. I'd started to suspect it was a script she'd been practicing in front of the silver compact. "If you're still with me, thank you. I know this is heavy." I almost didn't finish telling David what happened in that boutique. The harder part was still coming. The rehearsal dinner. The guest I didn't expect. And the one sentence that ended 30 years of pretending I didn't matter. If this story is reaching you, take 1 second to subscribe. It tells me to keep telling them. Friday evening, David and I went to a diner near the motel. Mel's, on Route 9. Open since 1971. The waitress called me Wesley Girl before I gave my name. She'd been there 20 years. She remembered me from high school. She did not remember Cassidy. The man in the next booth recognized me too. Mr. Harlan, my old chemistry teacher. He was 72 now, watery-eyed and kind. He'd read about my work in the Indianapolis Star, a small write-up about my clinic. Myra Wesley, he said, beaming. Riley Children's was lucky. He came over with his coffee. He sat with us for 10 minutes. He told me his grandnephew, 4 years old, had been born with a cleft palate. The family had gotten a speech therapy grant, a real one, through the Smith Coleman Foundation. You know about them, I bet, he said. Heavy charity people. The grandmother, Beatrice, she's 82 and sharp as the wire on a bailing hook. I know about them, I said. He looked at me a beat longer than necessary. Good, he said. He patted my hand and went back to his booth. I went back to the motel that night and pulled up my office's video doorbell on my laptop. The plaque was still on the wall. The lights were still on the timer. I existed. Tomorrow none of that might matter to anyone in Millbrook. Or maybe it would matter more than I knew. Saturday late lunch at the family farmhouse before the evening rehearsal. 14 people at the long table my grandfather built in 1968. Cassidy at the head, next to Mom. Trent in a polo, gracious, asking Roger about the corn yield. Aunt Patricia in coral lipstick. Cousins I hadn't seen since Easter 2019. David and I were seated at the very end on the kitchen side where the table joins the leaf and the chairs wobble. Cassidy's college roommate, a girl named Bryn, who I'd met for the first time 20 minutes earlier, was in my old chair next to Mom. I didn't comment. David didn't either. The corn salad came around, the bread basket. My mother passed me the butter dish without looking at my face. Halfway through the meal, my mother set down her fork and pulled out the silver compact. She snapped it open in front of everyone, checked her lipstick, talked while watching her own mouth move. Cassidy was always the only daughter we needed for show, she said, half to the table, half to the mirror. Myra is the daughter we needed for, well, she trailed off. She laughed nervously. Aunt Patricia laughed harder. The cousins didn't laugh. The cousins had already gone quiet, looking at their plates. David's hand found mine under the table. I excused myself to the kitchen. While I was rinsing my hands, I heard my mother on her cell with someone, the wedding planner, from the bits I caught. Just make sure she's not in the bridal party photos. Trust me. It's better. I dried my hands. I walked back to the dining room. I sat down. I finished my corn salad. David, on the porch 10 minutes later. Do you still want to go tonight? Yes, I said. He nodded once. He didn't ask why. My mother asked me to come to Crooked Stick at 5:30. To help fold napkins, she said, like that was a normal thing to ask of a guest. I went. David dropped me off and parked the car to walk the grounds. The country club was already humming. Catering crew. Florists. A young woman in a Navy headset directing teenagers carrying chairs. I came in through the back service hallway. I walked past the kitchen, past the linen room, and turned the corner to a long table covered in cream-colored documents. The wedding planner had laid everything out for final review. Seating charts, place cards, a stack of small booklets. I picked up the seating chart. Table 1 through 8, Coleman family. Table 9 through 12, bridal party. Table 13, Wesley grandparents and immediate family. I scanned to the bottom. Table 17. My name, listed between Bob Hartley, Wesley supply contact, and Mrs. Doreen Estep, florist coordinator. I set the chart down. I picked up a booklet. Inside was a printed family biography for the Coleman family, the Wesley side, written by my mother. 2 pages. Photos of Cassidy at every age. A line about my father's farm. A line about my mother's pageant career. The biography described Cassidy as the only child of Linda and Roger Wesley. I read it twice. Down the hallway, behind the linen room door, I heard my sister. She was on the phone. Voice tight. It's just easier this way, T. I told them you were estranged. Mental health issues. They won't ask if she shows up. Just be cool, okay? Please. I set the booklet back on the stack. I did not take a photo. I did not need to. I walked out to my car and sat in the driver's seat. The engine was off. I sat there for 19 minutes. I watched the country club through the windshield. The lawn rolled green and even toward the 18th hole. A man in a vest was placing chairs around an arbor. 2 women set out tea lights along the stone path. My mother's line came back first. Be realistic. Who'd come to your wedding? Then Cassidy's. I told them you were estranged. Mental health issues. They won't ask. I sat with both lines in my mouth. I let them settle. I had 3 choices. I could leave now and let them write the story. Myra showed up. Then Myra ran. Poor, unstable Myra. I could walk in and confront her at the door, give her exactly the villain narrative she'd been building since I was 9. Or I could go inside and exist. Just exist. Calmly. Visibly. In a navy dress that fit. Beside a man who loved me. At table 17, if that's where they put me. If they wanted a story where I was estranged and broken, my absence would be their proof. My presence, sober, dressed nicely, hand in hand with my fiancé, would be a problem they didn't know how to script. David knocked gently on the driver's window. I rolled it down. I'm staying, I said. Not to fight, to not run. He nodded. He walked around the car. He got into the passenger seat. We sat there together for another 2 minutes. He didn't ask what I'd seen. He just stayed. I checked my hair in the rear view. My finger came up automatically toward the scar above my lip. The old habit, the small private check, still there, still mine. I dropped my hand. Tonight, I wasn't going to hide it. I opened the car door. I stepped out into the parking lot. The string quartet was already tuning inside. Stay with me for the next few minutes. This is where the story I thought I was living turned out to be something else entirely. I didn't plan what happened next. I couldn't have. If you've ever sat in your car for 19 minutes deciding whether to walk into a room you were never really invited to, drop a comment. I want to hear about your 19 minutes. I walked into the country club ballroom at 6:30 with David at my elbow. 64 guests, the wedding planner had said. Half were already there. The Coleman side moved with a kind of inherited ease. Soft voices, real watches, blazers that fit at the shoulder. The Wesley side moved differently. My Aunt Patricia, near the bar, was already laughing too loudly. My cousin Trish kept tugging the back of her dress. My mother intercepted me at the entrance. She took my elbow and steered me half a step toward the wall. She straightened my collar, though my collar was already straight. Her voice was low. Don't make this about you tonight, Myra. Please. 3 times now. The script she could not stop reaching for. I looked at her. I kept my voice even. I won't, Mom. I won't make it about anything. She blinked. She wasn't sure what to do with that. I walked past her, toward table 17, on the far side of the room near the swinging kitchen door. David walked with me. Mr. Hartley, my father's plumbing supplier, stood up at our table and shook David's hand. He was kind. He poured me a glass of ice water without being asked. I sat down. I unfolded my napkin. The string quartet finished tuning. I had no idea yet that Beatrice Coleman was running 15 minutes late. Cocktail hour started at 6:45. David stood next to my chair with a club soda. I had ginger ale with a lime wedge. We talked quietly about the drive home Sunday. We did not look at my mother across the room. That's when Aunt Patricia floated over. She had a fresh Chardonnay in one hand and a tight, performing smile. She leaned down toward me, too close, like she was about to confide something. Sweetie, let me fix your hair, she said. It's hiding the good side. She tucked a strand behind my left ear. I let her. I knew what was coming. She dropped her voice further. Just don't smile too wide tonight, okay? The scar shows when you do. David went still beside me. I felt his weight shift. I put my hand on his wrist. Light. Steady. I looked up at my aunt. I did not raise my voice. I did not lower it either. I'll smile exactly as much as I want, Aunt Patricia. You smile however you need to. She blinked. She laughed. 2 short notes, performative. She lifted her wine glass like she'd been about to do that all along and floated back toward the bar. David's wrist relaxed under my fingers. He didn't say anything. He just sat down in the chair beside mine and put his hand at the small of my back. I sipped my ginger ale. The scar above my lip was warm. I didn't touch it. I didn't hide it. Across the room, Cassidy was laughing at something the wedding planner had said. My mother was watching Cassidy laugh. The room kept moving. The string quartet started a soft Vivaldi piece I recognized from 1,000 catalog commercials. The microphone on the dais was being adjusted by a server in a black vest. It was almost time. At 7:15, the wedding planner tapped the microphone. She introduced my mother as the proud mother of the bride. The room turned politely. My mother stepped up to the dais in a sapphire dress she had spent $400 on. Before she spoke, she snapped open the silver compact. She held it in her left hand at chest height, checked her lipstick in the small round mirror, snapped it shut, and tucked it into her clutch. The Tri-County engraving caught the chandelier light for half a second. From table 17, I could see it clearly. She started. She thanked the Coleman family for welcoming Cassidy. She thanked the wedding planner. She thanked my father, who stood beside her with his knuckles white around his beer bottle. She talked about Cassidy as a baby, a toddler in pageants, a teenager, a college graduate, a young woman who had grown into the daughter every mother prays for. She did not say my name. Not once. She closed with a line I will carry the rest of my life. Cassidy is the only daughter any mother could hope for. We are so blessed she chose Trent. The room applauded. Politely. I watched Margaret Coleman, the groom's mother, from across the ballroom. Retired Marion County judge. She was holding the family bio booklet flat against her plate. She did not applaud. She slid the booklet quietly under her napkin and set it aside. My mother stepped down. She floated back to her seat next to Cassidy. She didn't look toward table 17. David, low, beside me. Did your mom just... Yes, I said. The wedding planner stepped back to the microphone and announced the toasts would continue with a few words from the groom's family. Margaret Coleman stood up. Margaret was 62. Silver hair, pearls, a voice that had ruled a courtroom for 26 years and didn't have to be loud to land. She thanked the Wesley family. She talked briefly about Trent, his first time bringing a girl home, his quiet steadiness, his ability to make her laugh in conversations she didn't want to be in. The room warmed. Then she paused. She glanced down at her plate, where the family bio booklet sat folded under her napkin. She looked up. I do want to say something, she said. Her voice was even. Cassidy, my dear, I'd hoped to meet your sister tonight. The room stilled. Not silent, just slower. You mentioned to me at our home last weekend that she might not make it. I see 2 new faces at table 17. She lifted her chin slightly toward our side of the ballroom. Is one of them perhaps her? Cassidy was frozen. I watched her open her mouth. Close it. Open it again. That's actually her? Yes. She could make it after all. My mother cut in, half standing. Margaret, you know, Myra there have been some, health issues. We weren't sure. Margaret's expression did not change. She didn't look at my mother. She did not interrupt. She let my mother trail off. She said mildly, I see. 3 soft notes. Just that. I see. She raised her wine glass. To Cassidy and Trent. The room raised their glasses. The room toasted. The room sat down. The dinner continued. Margaret took her seat next to Trent. I watched her. She didn't look at me, but she did not let it go. She kept glancing toward the back doors of the ballroom, the way someone waits for a witness. Margaret leaned toward Trent and said something I couldn't hear. Trent's brow lowered. He looked across the ballroom, slowly, until his eyes landed on table 17. On me. On David. He held the look a beat too long. He looked back at his mother. Margaret said one word to him. I saw her mouth shape it. Wait. Trent settled back into his chair. He did not look pleased. He did not look angry yet. He looked like a lawyer who was working out which file he hadn't been shown. Cassidy reached for his arm. She whispered to him urgently, hand tight on his sleeve. He nodded. He did not turn toward her. He turned his water glass in a slow half-circle on the tablecloth. The salad course came. David, beside me low. Should we leave? Not yet, I said. He looked at me. He didn't ask why. I appreciated that because I wasn't sure why. There was a feeling in the room. Like the way a barn feels just before the wind shifts. I'd grown up on a farm. I knew that feeling. I ate my salad slowly. Spring greens, candied pecans, goat cheese, raspberry vinaigrette. Mr. Hartley at our table chatted with David about wind turbines. Mrs. Estep the florist explained how to arrange peonies. The other vendors at table 17 were kind people. They had no idea what room they were sitting in. Margaret kept glancing at the back ballroom doors. She wasn't waiting for the salad to clear. She was waiting for somebody. I didn't know who yet. Neither did my mother. My mother was busy laughing at Aunt Patricia's joke about the wedding planner. The doors at the back of the ballroom opened at 7:50. A small woman with a cane stepped in, helped by a young caretaker. The room changed temperature. She was small, maybe 5'2" in flats. Silver hair pinned at the nape of her neck, navy dress, one strand of pearls, hands folded over the head of a wooden cane. She did not look fragile. Margaret stood. Trent stood. The Coleman uncles stood. After a beat, the rest of the Coleman side rose to their feet. The Wesley side caught up a moment later. Uncertain, half rising, my Aunt Patricia almost knocking over her Chardonnay. I stood. So did David. The young caretaker walked her slowly to the head table. She apologized briefly, voice soft but carrying. The bridge construction on Route 9. I'm so sorry to be late. Margaret kissed her cheek and introduced her. Mother Beatrice, this is the Wesley family. Roger, Linda, the bride Cassidy. My mother, I watched this, actually curtsied. A little dip, like she'd practiced. Her sapphire dress rustled. Beatrice nodded politely. She shook Roger's hand. She accepted Linda's curtsy with a small smile that did not reach her eyes. She kissed Cassidy on the cheek and called her dear. Mrs. Coleman, we are just so honored, my mother said, breathless. Please, anything you need, anything at all. Just a chair, Beatrice said mildly. And perhaps a small glass of water? She allowed herself to be seated at the head of the Coleman table next to Margaret. Her eyes did not stay on my mother. They did not stay on Cassidy. They moved. She looked across the ballroom in a slow, deliberate sweep. Past the bar. Past the bridal party. Past my Aunt Patricia, who was still standing. Toward the far side of the room. Toward table 17. She didn't stop yet. Her gaze passed over me and kept going. Then it came back. It paused. She tilted her head, very slightly. Beatrice turned to Margaret. She didn't whisper. Her voice was meant to carry to the Coleman side. It carried farther than she intended. Have I met all of Cassidy's family, dear? Margaret set her water glass down. She picked her words deliberately. Almost, Mother Beatrice. I was just asking after her sister a few minutes ago. Beatrice's eyebrows lifted half an inch. Her sister? Cassidy, several chairs down, made a small, involuntary sound. My mother spoke first, quickly. Oh, she works far away. She has a... There have been... She doesn't always like big events. Cassidy cut over her, voice too bright. She's the quiet one in the family, Mrs. Coleman. We were so happy she could make it after all. Beatrice did not look at Cassidy, did not look at my mother. Where is she sitting? 5 words. Mild, like she was asking about a missing centerpiece. My mother paled visibly. She's just... Over there, she likes the back. Doesn't like attention. I see. Beatrice slowly turned her head toward table 17. The ballroom got smaller. I could feel 64 people not chewing. I hadn't yet made eye contact with this woman. I didn't even know her face. I'd only ever seen Beatrice Coleman from a stage, from far away, the night I'd given my keynote. She'd been in the third row. The award presenter had read my name from a card. She'd applauded with everyone else. She knew my name. She just didn't know, yet, that I was sitting at table 17. She turned to her caretaker. She said audibly to the nearest tables, "Helen, would you bring me to that young woman over there? I'd like to see her up close." Helen helped her stand. Margaret stood. Trent stood. I stood. Beatrice began to walk. She moved slowly, deliberately, cane tapping the marble. Helen at her elbow. Margaret a half step behind. Trent following, hands folded in front of him, watching his grandmother the way you watch a doctor making a house call. She walked past the bridal party table, past my cousin Trish, past the wedding planner who stepped aside without being asked. She walked past the Wesley family table. My Aunt Patricia froze in mid-sentence. Her Chardonnay tilted in her hand. A drop fell onto the tablecloth and bloomed there. My mother's mouth opened and closed. I saw her reach into her clutch. I saw her pull out the silver compact. She did not open it. She just held it tightly in her right palm, like a coin you check to make sure is still in your pocket. The engraving caught the chandelier light. Beatrice did not slow. She passed my mother without looking at her. She passed Cassidy, who had gone the same color as the white roses at the centerpiece. I stood beside table 17. David stood beside me. The string quartet was still playing. Vivaldi, then Pachelbel, then something slower I didn't recognize. The musicians did not stop. They simply played quieter. Trained for this. The bridal party watched. The vendors at my table watched. Mr. Hartley, my father's plumbing supplier, had set down his soup spoon and folded his hands. Beatrice stopped 3 feet from me. She looked at my face. She looked at the scar above my lip. She did not flinch. She did not soften. She did not stare. She looked back to my eyes. She studied me a moment longer. Then she said the words I had not been expecting to hear in the place I had spent my whole life being smaller in. "Do I know you, dear?" Her voice was gentle, not theatrical, like she really was just asking. "Myra Wesley," I said. My voice came out steady. "Cassidy's older sister. We've corresponded briefly, ma'am. Last year." Her eyes flickered. She did not say anything yet. She tilted her head another half-inch. Her hand on the cane tightened. "Myra Wesley," she said. "From Riley Children's, the pediatric therapist." "Yes, ma'am." "You spoke at our gala in October." "Yes, ma'am." "You showed photographs of a little boy named Eli." "Yes, ma'am." "You said something." She stopped. She breathed. Her free hand came up and pressed lightly to her sternum. "You said something that made me cry in a hotel ballroom for the first time in 20 years. The room behind her was no longer eating. David did not move at my elbow. The vendors at table 17 had become a hushed audience. Mr. Hartley's eyes had gone soft. I heard, somewhere behind me, my mother whisper one word. "No." Just the air leaving her. I did not turn around. Beatrice was still looking at me. She lifted her right hand slightly from the cane, reached toward my face, stopped, asked permission with her eyes. I nodded. She brushed the back of her knuckle lightly against my cheek. Not the scar, the cheek, the way you might touch a granddaughter's face. "Beautiful work," she said, very softly. "You are doing beautiful work." I felt my eyes sting. I did not cry. Not yet. Margaret stood beside her. Trent stood behind Margaret. Cassidy had not stood at all. She was still seated at the head table with her hands flat on the white linen. Beatrice lowered her hand and turned slightly so her voice would carry. She wasn't done talking. She did not raise her voice. She didn't have to. She turned just enough so that her words reached the head table. Reached Cassidy. Reached my mother, still gripping the compact in her right hand. Reached Aunt Patricia, frozen at the bar with Chardonnay drying on her wrist. "I know exactly who you are, dear." 5 words. She let them sit. "Our foundation gave you the Excellence in Pediatric Care Award last year. $10,000 and a plaque you'll never display loud enough. A small smile. She'd noticed then. From somewhere. The plaque on my office wall. The fact that I'd hung it where I worked, where my patients saw it, but not where anyone in Millbrook had ever set foot. She turned her head toward the room. Just an inch. Enough. Forgive me, she said. I'd like to be sure I'm understanding correctly. This young woman is Cassidy's older sister. She works in pediatric craniofacial care at Riley Children's. She keynoted our foundation's annual gala in October. She is, I am now told, here at table 17. She paused. My daughter-in-law mentioned, less than 15 minutes ago, that this young woman was perhaps unable to attend tonight. Her own sister told us she was estranged. The ballroom was silent. The string quartet had stopped between movements. The musicians had not started the next piece. The first violinist held her bow above the strings and did not move. A server with a tray of bread plates stood frozen near the bar. My mother dropped her clutch. It hit the marble with a small, soft thud. The compact did not fall out. Not yet. But her grip on it was now visible, white-knuckled, to the whole room. Cassidy was crying without sound. 2 tears, one then the other, sliding down her cheek and into the corner of her mouth. Beatrice looked back at me. "Will you walk with me, dear?" I said. "Yes, ma'am." I took her arm. Beatrice did not walk me back to her table. Not yet. She turned toward the room, cane in her left hand, my arm under her right. She let me carry just a little of her weight. "Let me share something with all of you," she said, voice carrying without strain. The Smith Coleman Foundation supports children born with craniofacial differences. We give roughly $2 million a year. We sponsor 1 clinical award annually for excellence in pediatric care. She paused. Last October, we gave that award to this young woman. She did not look at my mother. She did not look at Cassidy. She spoke to the room. At our gala, Myra Wesley spoke for 14 minutes. She talked about a 5-year-old boy in her practice. She talked about her own scar, that one, above her lip, that I would not have noticed if she had not mentioned it. She said something I have not been able to forget. Beatrice glanced sideways at me. Gentle. She said, "This scar didn't make me ugly. It made me useful." Somebody at the Coleman side breathed in sharply. I did not see who. Beatrice turned again. "I have been looking forward to meeting Cassidy's entire family all weekend. I now understand I have been meeting only some of them." Aunt Patricia tried to break in from the bar, voice shrill and bright. "Mrs. Coleman, she just hasn't been around much. There are reasons?" Beatrice did not turn her head. "I'm sure there are," she said, tone like a closed door. My aunt's mouth stayed half open. She lowered her Chardonnay glass slowly to the bar top. She did not speak again. Beatrice patted my hand on her arm. She turned back toward the head table. Then Margaret stood up. Margaret was a retired judge. She knew how to hold a room. She did not move toward the microphone. She did not raise her voice. She turned toward Cassidy and spoke at conversational volume that somehow reached every plate. "Cassidy, last weekend at our home, you told me your sister was estranged, that she had mental health issues, that she would likely not attend tonight." Trent stood up beside Cassidy. His voice was low. "Cass, is that true? Is that what you told my mother?" Cassidy reached for his hand. He stepped back. Not far, just 1 step. The whole room saw it. "Trent, baby, it's complicated. Please, can we just talk in private?" "Did you tell my grandmother that too?" Margaret cut in evenly. "We can talk in private. But the family bio booklet on every plate tonight describes you as the only child of Linda and Roger Wesley. I read it before I sat down." She picked up the booklet from her placemat and held it lightly between 2 fingers. "I'd like to know who wrote it." Cassidy looked at my mother. My mother looked at the floor. The booklet hung in the air for a beat. Margaret set it back down. The booklet did the rest of the work for her. Trent looked at Cassidy. He did not look angry. He looked tired. "Cass," he said, "why would you lie about your own sister?" She started to cry harder, the kind of crying that came with cupped hands and shoulders that shook, the kind that asks to be held. He did not move to hold her. I watched my sister, for the first time in 30 years, sit alone in a room she had spent her whole life never sitting alone in. My mother tried. She rose from her chair, holding her sapphire dress at the hip. Her voice came out cracked at the edges. "Mrs. Coleman, please. There has been Myra has done very well, of course. We wanted the focus to be on Cassidy tonight." Margaret turned her head a half degree. She did not interrupt. She let my mother finish. Then she said, almost casual, the way a judge slides one fact across the bench, "I understand. I'd just like to know why your older daughter was assigned to table 17. I'd also like to know why, on a phone call my son overheard at our home 2 weeks ago, someone in your family told her, and I quote, that you couldn't pour resources into a wedding for her, because, in your words, no one would come." The room went silent again. Mom did not speak. Mom opened her mouth, closed it, opened it, made a small sound, closed it. That was when Cassidy did the thing nobody expected. She turned on my mother. "You said that to her? On the phone? Mom?" It was not an apology. It was reflex. Self-preservation, maybe. The first cracked moment in my sister I'd ever seen. My mother whipped around toward her. "Don't you dare, Cassidy. Don't you dare turn this on me. I gave you everything." Her voice rose. Beatrice beside me did not flinch. She said, very quietly, almost to the floor, "Yes, we can see that." My mother's hand was visible again. The silver compact was in her right palm. Tri-County 1984 engraving facing the room. Her knuckles were white. I had not said a word for 15 minutes. I did not need to. My Aunt Patricia could not bear silence. She lived inside the small, bright currency of being the one with information, of being able to lean toward an ear and whisper something. She had whispered for 30 years. Her marriage had collapsed. Her son lived in Phoenix and didn't call. The only thing she had left was being the family's narrator. She stepped forward from the bar. "I just want to say," she announced, voice too loud, "that nobody is being fair to Linda. Linda has had so much to deal with. I mean, look. With Myra's face. You understand." A small wince ran through the Coleman side of the room. Patricia heard it. She made it worse. It was hard for Linda all those years, and Myra has always been such a quiet, quiet girl. You could never tell what she was thinking. Linda just wanted Cassidy to have her moment. You know, without... She trailed off because of who was looking at her. Trent's father, Edward Coleman, had been silent the entire evening. He stood up now. He was tall, gray-haired, kind-eyed, and he did not raise his voice. "Patricia," he said gently, "please stop talking. I'm just saying. You're really not just saying. Please stop." Aunt Patricia sat. Hard. Her Chardonnay tipped slightly, then steadied. Wine spread in a small, slow oval on the white tablecloth and did not stop spreading. Across the room, my father reached across to my mother. He took her right hand. Gently. He pulled it out of her grip on the silver compact. Just took her fingers. Held them. He did not speak. He did not look at me. But for the first time in my life, he interrupted one of her silences. That counted as something. It did not redeem him. It counted, though. Beatrice turned back toward me. Her eyes were soft, her cane steady. Her free hand extended, palm up. "Myra Wesley," she said, formal now, voice carrying. "Would you do me the honor of joining us at the family table for the remainder of the evening? I have several questions about Eli I never got to ask at the gala." I took her hand. "It would be my honor, Mrs. Coleman." That's when my mother broke. Her voice came out sharp and high, cracking on the second syllable, the kind of voice a mother uses when she still believes she can call her daughter back to a corner. "Myra, don't you dare turn this into your moment. This is Cassidy's night." She gestured sharply with her right hand. The silver compact slipped. It fell from her fingers. It hit the marble floor with a small, clean, terrible sound. Not loud, Not dramatic. Just final. The case popped open. The little round mirror inside cracked across the center. Then again, in 3 quick spiderweb fractures. A piece the size of a dime slid out and skidded a foot across the marble. The engraving on the lid, Miss Tri-County 1984, scraped against the floor and came to rest face up, catching the chandelier light one last time. The string quartet did not play. 64 people did not breathe. I looked at my mother. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. I'm not turning this into anything, Mom. I'm just standing where I was put. You did the rest. 12 words. I had spent 30 years building them. I turned. I walked with Beatrice toward the head table. David walked behind me, 3 steps back, where he belonged in this moment. Close enough, far enough. Trent stepped aside to let me pass. He did not look at Cassidy. He nodded once at me, small, lawyer formal. Margaret pulled out the chair beside Beatrice's. I sat down. Beatrice patted my hand. A server appeared at my elbow with a fresh water glass and a clean napkin. He did not look at me twice. He had been trained, in country clubs his whole career, to act as if everything was normal. I appreciated him. The wedding planner appeared at the dais and made a small attempt to keep the evening moving. She thanked everyone for coming. She announced that the cake would be served at 8:45 and that the bride and groom would speak briefly before then. The bride and groom did not speak briefly. Trent left the head table and walked out a side door at 8:05. Cassidy followed at 8:12. My mother left at 8:18. Aunt Patricia caught up with her in the parking lot. The silver compact stayed on the marble floor. Nobody picked it up. I stayed at the Coleman table until the cake was served. Beatrice asked about Eli. She asked about my practice. She asked how I'd known, at 24, that I wanted to work with the children no one wanted to photograph cleanly. I told her. She listened. Margaret refilled my water twice. Edward Coleman shook David's hand and asked, kindly, about wind turbines. The room slowly went back to eating. Some of it, not all of it. My father stayed at the Wesley family table. Just him. Cousins drifted back to their chairs. Aunt Patricia did not return. My mother did not return. At one point, near the end of the dinner, my father stood up. He walked, slowly, across the ballroom toward the Coleman table. He did not speak when he got there. He stopped behind my chair. He put one hand on my shoulder. Light. 3 seconds. The way a man who has not touched his daughter in 20 years might touch her once, to make sure she was real. He removed his hand. He walked back. He sat down at the empty Wesley table and finished his cake. Beatrice watched him go. She turned to me. Her voice was low. He has it in him, she said. He just doesn't have the muscle for it yet. That isn't your problem to fix. I nodded. I did not cry. The wedding the next day went forward. Smaller. Restructured. The Coleman family attended out of respect for Trent. The Wesley side was thinned by half. 3 cars had driven back to Indianapolis overnight. David and I did not attend. We checked out of the Best Western at 9 in the morning. We drove home. We did not speak much. We did not need to. The cornfields outside Greenwood were starting to come up. David and I got married in October. A botanical garden in Indianapolis. 38 guests. My father came alone. My mother stayed home. Cassidy and Trent came. They are in couples counseling, twice a month. And Trent walked Cassidy down the garden path with his hand at the small of her back, the way a husband does, when he hasn't decided yet whether he's still her husband. Aunt Patricia was not invited. My mother was not invited. The Smith Coleman Foundation sent a $500 donation to my clinic in our names. Beatrice attached a handwritten note. 3 lines, blue ink. Get on with it. Be happy. There's no extra credit for waiting. I taped the note inside my desk drawer. Cassidy and I had 1 coffee, 2 weeks before the wedding. She apologized. Partly. She said she didn't know what to do with what she'd built. She did not ask me to forgive her quickly. I appreciated that. I did not forgive her quickly. We left it open. My mother called twice in 6 months. I did not answer. She has not called again. There may be a reckoning later. There may not. My father sold 10 acres along the back ridge to pay down the second mortgage. He calls every other Sunday. He still doesn't say much. He's calling, though. The farm survives. My mother is reportedly considering selling the Miss Tri-County trophies. I do not know if she will. I do not need to know. I'm at my desk on a Tuesday morning, coffee in my hand. The plaque is on the wall above my desk. Smith Coleman Foundation, Excellence in Pediatric Care. I look at it most mornings. Some mornings I don't. I touch the scar above my lip. Once. Deliberately. I don't hide it. On the bookshelf, in a small glass dish, there is one shard of mirror the size of a dime. Beatrice mailed it to me a week after the rehearsal dinner. Helen had picked it up off the marble floor before they left the country club. Beatrice's note said, "So you remember what broke. Not so you stay angry. So you remember it wasn't yours to fix." Here is what I learned at 33. The worst thing about being called the ugly one for 30 years wasn't the word. It was how long I let it decide which table I sat at. The table isn't yours. The chair you choose is. That's my story. The compact broke. The truth didn't need to. If you've ever been the one they erased from the program, you're not alone. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.